Power outages tend to reveal how much modern food storage depends on uninterrupted systems. In daily life, refrigeration feels almost invisible. Food goes into a refrigerator or freezer, temperatures stay stable, and most households rarely think about what makes that possible. Electricity is simply expected to be there. Grocery stores are nearby. Fresh food is easy to replace. Supply chains continue operating in the background. But refrigeration is not only about the appliance sitting in a kitchen. It depends on a larger chain. Electricity needs to remain available. Distribution systems need to function normally. Repair services need to respond when failures happen. Stores need regular deliveries. Transportation networks need fuel and stable logistics. Warehouses must continue operating. Most of the time, this structure works quietly and efficiently. The dependency only becomes visible when something interrupts it. A storm can bring down power lines. Heat waves can overload electrical systems. Flooding, equipment failures, or regional blackouts can leave households without refrigeration for hours or even days. In some areas, outages happen repeatedly during certain seasons. At first, the interruption feels temporary. People wait for electricity to return. Refrigerators stay closed. Frozen food remains solid for a while. But eventually, temperature becomes the main issue. Fresh food starts degrading. Dairy products become uncertain. Meat requires decisions. Frozen food slowly begins to thaw. Many households discover that what they considered food security depended heavily on a constant electrical connection. This is one reason why some people begin researching methods of storing food that do not rely entirely on refrigeration. Not as a replacement for modern systems, but as an additional layer. There are several categories of approaches people use to reduce this dependency. One category involves backup electricity. This usually means generators, battery systems, solar backup setups, or power stations capable of temporarily running refrigerators and freezers. Structurally, this keeps the existing system operating instead of replacing it. The advantage is familiarity. Households continue using the same appliances they already know. The limitation is duration. Backup systems depend on fuel, battery storage, sunlight, maintenance, or equipment capacity. During longer interruptions, limitations can appear. Another category focuses on cooling alternatives. Root cellars, insulated storage areas, evaporative cooling methods, cool basements, and thermal storage systems have been used in different climates for generations. These methods reduce temperature naturally or stabilize conditions without relying fully on electricity. They can work well for certain foods. However, they often depend on geography, climate, available space, or seasonal conditions. What works in one region may not work in another. Then there is another category that works differently. Instead of preserving food by keeping it cold, it changes the structure of food storage itself. This includes shelf-stable foods and long-term preservation methods. Drying, fermentation, smoking, salt curing, dehydration, pressure canning, fat preservation, vacuum storage, and moisture reduction are all examples of approaches that reduce dependency on refrigeration by changing how food is prepared and stored. The basic idea is simple. Rather than depending on cold temperatures to delay spoilage, these methods reduce moisture, limit bacterial growth, create stable environments, or preserve nutrients in forms that remain usable over time. Some people gradually build a pantry system around these approaches. Instead of keeping only refrigerated meals, they begin adding foods designed to remain stable at room temperature for months or longer. Beans, grains, dried ingredients, preserved meats, dehydrated vegetables, shelf-stable fats, fermented foods, preserved soups, and manually stored ingredients become part of a secondary system. This approach works at a household scale. It does not require replacing refrigeration entirely. Instead, it shortens dependency during interruptions. If electricity fails, there is still another layer of food available that does not immediately become unusable. Among these approaches, One format people often research is long-term pantry-based food. Preservation systems. These systems focus on preserving common foods in ways that remain functional without refrigeration. For extended periods. The format itself is practical. At a functional level, it usually starts with identifying foods suitable for preservation. Some foods naturally store longer than others. Grains, dried legumes, fats, cured proteins, preserved vegetables, and dehydrated ingredients are often chosen because they tolerate room storage more easily. Then comes preparation. Depending on the method, moisture may be reduced through drying or dehydration. Salt, fat, fermentation, or acidity may be used to create stable conditions. In some cases, ingredients are pressure canned or sealed in containers designed to reduce oxygen exposure. Storage matters as well. Containers, humidity, temperature, and light exposure affect longevity. Cool and stable environments generally improve reliability. Rotation also matters. Many households treat preserved food like an extension of everyday cooking rather than something completely separate. This makes the system easier to maintain over time. Some people prefer ready-made solutions. That may include commercially prepared shelf-stable foods, preserved meals, emergency rations, or freeze-dried storage products. Others prefer systems they can assemble themselves. This is where build-from-plan approaches sometimes appear. Instead of buying fully prepared storage systems, some households follow documented preservation methods using common ingredients and basic equipment already available. These build-from-plan formats usually include practical information rather than specialized technology. A guide may contain materials lists, food preparation steps, storage arrangements, preservation techniques, shelf life expectations, and methods for organizing ingredients. Some also explain how to structure a pantry around categories of foods rather than isolated products. In situations involving dehydrated storage or drying methods, guides may include layouts for airflow, heat exposure, drying racks, or equipment arrangements. For fermentation or preserved foods, they often document ratios, timing, environmental conditions, and container setup. The purpose is generally repeatability. The same process can be used again later with ordinary materials. What makes this structurally different from traditional refrigeration is the dependency chain. A refrigerator depends on electricity first. Long-term preservation systems depend more on preparation. The work happens earlier rather than later. Food is stabilized before an interruption happens instead of relying entirely on continuous cooling afterward. Of course, no single system solves every situation. Fresh foods still matter. Refrigeration remains useful. Backup electricity can still make sense. In many households, a combination works better than relying on one method alone. A pantry-based preservation system works best as an additional layer. It may be useful for households in areas with frequent outages, rural homes with unstable infrastructure, people preparing for seasonal disruptions, or anyone who prefers reducing dependency on continuous refrigeration for part of their food supply. It can also help shorten the chain between the household and outside systems. Instead of depending entirely on grocery schedules, electrical stability, and cold storage at every stage, some food remains directly accessible and usable. That does not mean abandoning modern convenience. It simply adds flexibility. For people researching this approach, structured guides exist that document food preservation systems, step by step, often showing preparation methods, storage formats, ingredient selection, and household organization. One commonly shared reference format is usually included in the video description for those who want to explore how these systems are organized in more detail.